we come up with a way of having these conversations around funding important efforts and work, and having a path towards supporting them to completion in a real and significant way. I want to make sure that this motion doesn't, commit future funds that I'm not thinking of in the context of supporting the motion today. So I share the dream. I want it to come to fruition. And that's why I'm a budget geek, because I think we pay for what is important to us. And having a plan for how to pay for it is an important element, I think, when we bring these kind of motions forward. So I will be supporting it today, but wanted to state for the record my structural concerns in our budgeting. Supervisor Barger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm prepared to support this, but now after listening to Supervisor Kuehl and Supervisor Mitchell, I just have a question for Fezia. Has the county discussed a number of, we've got all these projects going. Have we prioritized or put together a plan as it relates to the funding?
Thank you, Supervisor. So we do have, projects that are under consideration. Some of them are further ahead than others in terms of their planning and their, ability, let's say, being shovel ready. What we don't have in a formalized way, Supervisor, is we don't have a global document, for example, that takes, let's say, all of the, or maybe some of the projects that we know that are, on deck, or maybe there's a motion related to development of a capital project. What we don't have is a formal document that kind of scores each of those projects, that talks about implementation readiness, proposed financing sources, whether it's NCC or debt financed or private development. My team looks at that behind the scenes, but if you're asking if we have a formal document like the equivalent of a master plan for, various capital projects that board offices would like to implement, we do not have that formal document.
So in the motion, it's identified funding, and if I heard correctly, and I may have misunderstood what Supervisor Kuehl was saying, but it seems like some of this money may already be eyed, or we've already set as a priority to possibly put into certain projects. In your report back, if that's the case, are you going to include that narrative as it relates to the money that's been identified specifically in this motion?
Well, yes. So we would look at a number of funding sources, including the ones that are identified in the motion. I think we would be remiss in our duty to kind of say some funding is available if there was a prior motion or if there's a prior commitment for that same funding. So yes, Great. We would do the research on each one and say what's available, what's committed, or what has been discussed maybe in other reports back to the board.
Yeah, and I saw Supervisor Solis nodding her head in agreement. So yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Supervisor Solis.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, colleagues, for your questions. I do want to clarify that on the funding from Measure J, it's actually not Measure J funding. It's money that we didn't use to build the jail. So what better use of that funding source? So maybe that wasn't clear. So I want to clarify that. And then just wanted to also clarify for Supervisor Kuehl, in the motion itself, it says to instruct the acting director of mental health to report back to the board in writing in 30 days on the availability of the local share of No Place Like Home funds and the possibility. So it doesn't say, yes, it's $50 million. It says to look to see what is there. And of course, everything, as I said, is not cemented. I'm sure things are negotiable, and it's going to be based on what availability is there. So I'm hopeful that folks will look at this in a way that doesn't take us off track in terms of what our goals are as a board, where we want to go to house the homeless. And this project, I believe, is a selfless project, because we're not just looking at the immediate community that's going to be served. It's a regional effort. We get people that come from Skid Row, from San Fernando, from Pomona, from Long Beach, from all parts of the county that will be utilizing and will be housed and will get work and will have opportunities here. So I hope that members, as we go through it again, it's a report, and I hope that you'll hang in with us. And we do have a very, very aggressive, how can I say, focus on turning this into a P3 project. So we do get substantial financial support. If we could make the project lucrative to show that the county is invested and we have a strong commitment, I'm sure once they see what's there, they will come. And I hope that happens. I want to thank also the individuals this morning that called in support of the project, the many people that have been putting so much time, including our CEO and their very competent staff. I want to thank them. I want to thank also our nonprofits, LA Sync, California Community Foundation, California Endowment, and many others that are looking for our leadership and saying, if this is a direction that the county wants to go in, we want to be a part of it. So again, thank you, colleagues, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Supervisor Solis, I think Supervisor Kuehl, do you have a question of Supervisor Solis?
No, I have a statement to Supervisor Solis. She's convinced me, and so have you. When I say I really respect a dream, I do, Hilda. We worked together for 35 years on stuff.
We've dreamed together.
We do, and my sister was born at that hospital, so it's not like I don't get it, and I would hope for it too. I like Fezia talking about and Holly talking about, kind of pulling together just to show us, because I know that the Restorative Care Village also tapped some of that money, the Care First money, and appropriately, and we were for it. But it's kind of, I tend to lean towards these things anyway. And my mother would always say, you try to be practical, but then you just always fail at the end. So I'm going to fail at the end in a way, and just join you and do it, because I'm an optimist and I have hope. So I hope it works. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair?
Supervisor, yes.
Yes, thank you, Supervisor Kuehl. You and I have been through a lot. From your days in the Assembly and mine in the Senate, working, collaborating, even out there protesting and doing everything we could to help preserve the rights of poor people and women and their children and reproductive. Oh, so many, many things. And to me, this is something that's an opportunity that is real for us. It's unlike the Sears building where people are chattering and talking about how they can take care of people. Oh my God, we've already got some information that it's just not going to be a workable project. So I'm not focused on where the shiny apple is. No, I want to go where things are really going to make a difference and people really care. So I thank you. I thank all my colleagues, and I thank our CEO and all the public residents and folks that we represent. And if I could just share one thing with you, Sheila.
Supervisor Solis, I just want you to know that folks are asking me to call for the vote. So,
okay, call.
Let me just suggest.
All right.
It looks like
I'm going to start tearing up here.
And you're going to start losing votes. I think you turned one over. You turned an abstention to a yes. So take it from me. Let's stop while you're ahead. Fair enough?
Call for the vote.
Fair enough?
Fair enough, Madam
Okay, great. Hearing no other comments, item 14 is before us, moved by Supervisor Solis, seconded by Supervisor Kuehl to approve this item. Executive Officer, call the roll, please.
Item 14 is before you. Supervisor Solis.
Aye.
Supervisor Solis, aye. Supervisor Kuehl.
Okay, now I'm a co-author, for God's sake.
No, not a co-author. You just seconded the motion.
Okay, I second that emotion.
You second that emotion. That's an aye, Meg.
Supervisor Kuehl, aye. Supervisor Hahn.
Aye.
Supervisor Hahn, aye. Supervisor Barger.
Aye.
Supervisor Barger, aye. Supervisor Mitchell.
Aye.
Supervisor Mitchell, aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Thank you. Muchas gracias.
De nada. We'll now move on to item 19, establishing a commercial property acquisition strategy to stabilize small businesses and approving a pilot project in Mert Park. It's a motion that I held. Small businesses are the anchor of local communities. They create local jobs and wealth-building opportunities for diverse residents. They provide goods and services and foster a sense of community and culture. And as you all well know, LA County is home to 1.3 million small businesses, close to 60% of which are owned by and operated by people of color. And we know that the rising cost of commercial rent is a critical challenge facing our small business community. We know the demand when we rolled out our commercial rent relief for small businesses, how it was wildly and received very well across the county based on this problem of rising rents. Rising rents and real estate speculation are causing displacement for many vulnerable small businesses, especially those in gentrifying communities of color. This motion, colleagues, directs the Department of Economic Opportunity to establish a new county-wide strategy to stabilize small businesses led by people of color and other marginalized populations. In the green sheets, some of you may have noticed that we changed the name of the motion and removed the specific pilot partner name of, quote, the Black-owned and operated community land trust. You know, we did this because that title alone was causing lots of confusion, lots of troubling to me conversation about what the motivation really was. And so we wanted to really get to the core intent of the motion and provide clarification. Number one, the motion is establishing a county-wide commercial property acquisition strategy, which will work with qualified community-based acquisition partners, again, across LA County. Number two, the intent of the motion is to preserve commercial corridors. And three, the motion also approves a specific pilot project in the 2nd District in my home community of Mert Park, led by the nonprofit Black-owned and operated Community Land Trust and underwritten by the Community Development Finance Institution, Genesis LA. These are partners for the pilot project, but not the broader program. These partners have been vetted by the county. So let me read in an amendment that will provide further clarification that any future redevelopment of the said property in Mert Park acquired by the Black-owned and operated Community Land Trust is not only required to provide below market commercial rent, because that is our fundamental goal, but it also requires affordable housing and a robust community engagement process before and if any redevelopment of the land could occur. The amendment is to Directive Number 4 and reads as follows. In the case of any future redevelopment that adds housing units, at least 20% of units are deed restricted as long-term affordable housing units. The community must be meaningfully engaged in advance of any future development. As stated in the motion, county funding for the pilot project and all future projects will be subject to stipulations and conditions for any future redevelopment, including a requirement of long-term below market rate commercial space for local small businesses and nonprofits and anti-displacement requirements. These requirements align with the established Community Benefits Board policy that we heard referenced earlier in relation to another motion. Through this pilot acquisition, we are preventing the property from being gentrified by a commercial real estate speculator. I believe in the strong community benefits of this deal and the ability of the key partners to implement it. Let me be very clear that while I may be new to the board and new to the county, I am not new to Mert Park and have spent many years in various professional capacities making sure that the cultural rich heritage of Mert Park and the small businesses who have throughout the decades have had varying experiences in terms of trying to keep their doors open and trying to afford the rent, that we transition into a ownership, opportunity and an ownership opportunity that protects current tenants from escalating rents. And that element makes me very proud. So I'm excited to establish this program as an additional strategy to stabilize communities and prevent displacement. We will capture learnings from the pilot and then look forward to scaling the model to help our highest need businesses across the county benefit. I ask for your aye vote. Any questions or comments on motion number 19? Seeing none, hearing no other comments, item 19 is before us. I will move and ask that Supervisor Kuehl second to approve the item. Executive Officer, please call the roll.
Item 19 is before you. Supervisor Solis.
Aye.
Supervisor Solis, aye. Supervisor Kuehl.
Aye.
Supervisor Kuehl, aye. Supervisor Hahn.
Aye.
Supervisor Hahn, aye. Supervisor Barger.
Aye.
Supervisor Barger, aye. Supervisor Mitchell.
Aye.
Supervisor Mitchell, aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Moving on to item 24, educating youth about the school threat assessment response team, which was held by Supervisor Hahn. Supervisor Hahn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's been just over 2 months since 19 children and 2 teachers were killed in that school shooting in Uvalde, Texas. And I think our nation is still reeling from this tragedy on top of a lot of other mass shootings in and around our communities and schools. School violence, and specifically the threat of a school shooting, is a real and serious possibility that our students face across the country and here in LA County. Studies have shown that many youth who commit acts of violence at school show warning signs beforehand. Many even discuss or mention their plans to their peers or post about them on social media. And we know that targeted and direct intervention in response to warning signs can successfully prevent individuals from following through with violent acts against others or themselves. That's why our Department of Mental Health created the School Threat Assessments Response Team called START back in 2009. And just recently in 2019, Supervisor Barger and myself led the expansion of START from 10 members to 42. START consists of mental health professionals who work with schools to identify students who are suffering from mental health issues who might pose a threat to themselves or others. The team then assesses the level of risk and provides targeted intervention and services. If the threat is advanced enough, they'll work with law enforcement as well. This START program is used by school districts all across our county, and one would hope that countless tragedies might have been averted by intervening early. I hope people know that anyone can contact START and make a referral when they see warning signs by emailing start@dmh.lacounty.gov or calling 213-739-5565. But unfortunately, I don't think many people know about this program. Up until now, START has focused its outreach on school staff and administrators, not the students themselves. Most high school students don't even know that START exists, let alone how to contact them if they see something concerning. Every high school in LA County should know about the START program. So today, this motion will be directing the Department of Mental Health to implement an educational campaign designed specifically to inform the youth about START. I want this campaign to educate youth on what the START program does, how to make a referral to START if they see concerning behavior from a peer, and describe examples of warning signs and behaviors that they could report. And I also want to get more regular data on how START is used across the county. So this motion also asks for a written report twice a year with an overview of the services and the responses provided. This will help us see areas of success and opportunities for improvement. There's not a one-size solution to prevent school shootings, But the START program is one tool that we have to prevent school violence through professional threat assessment, early intervention, and mental health linkage, and we should use it. Thank you, Supervisor Barger, for being my co-author. You have, from the very beginning, been such a strong supporter of START over the years, and you were instrumental in its expansion back in 2019. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Supervisor Barger.
I'll be short. And Supervisor Hahn, thank you for letting me be a part of this program and a part of the motions that have brought it forward. You've said it all. This is something that I believe in to my core. And there's no question that we do need to get the word out because this is a program that will truly help people on campuses with the tools that are needed. This program truly is a great solution. And my hope is that we can really saturate all of our school districts with the knowledge of START and make a difference and have this be something that's looked at nationally as it relates to what we are doing at the front line. So thank you for letting me be a part of this. So with that, I will let us call for the vote.
Beautiful. Seeing no other comments or questions on the item. Item 24 is moved by Supervisor Hahn, seconded by Supervisor Barger to approve the item. Please call the roll.
Item 24 is before you. Supervisor Solis.
Aye.
Supervisor Solis, aye. Supervisor Kuehl.
Aye.
Supervisor Kuehl, aye. Supervisor Hahn.
Aye.
Supervisor Hahn, aye. Supervisor Barger.
Aye.
Supervisor Barger, aye. Supervisor Mitchell.
Aye.
Supervisor Mitchell, aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Item 27, 5 signature letters support House Resolution 40 by Jackson Lee, the Commission to Study and Develop Reparation Proposals for African Americans Act. Supervisor Hahn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last Wednesday, as you know, the county set a precedent in the pursuit of justice by returning land that was taken by the government from a Black family in an act of racism nearly 100 years ago in what I thought was a very moving ceremony, Supervisor Mitchell, that you put together, along with our registrar recorder, Dean Logan, who actually had the moment where he handed over the deed to Bruce's Beach to the descendants of Willa and Charles Bruce, righting a historic wrong that has deprived them of generational wealth for decades. While that was a momentous occasion, we know that what happened at Bruce's Beach in the 1920s is just one of the countless acts of racism committed by governments against African Americans here in the United States. And you said, Supervisor Mitchell, it wasn't a moment, it was a movement. I thought that was significant. It's not an isolated incident, which we participated in, even though it was unprecedented. But land theft and systemic racial injustices have occurred all over the country, and their impacts need to be investigated. An op-ed in the Sacramento Observer this weekend said that the returning of Bruce's Beach proves reparations are possible. For a number of years, my former colleague, and I know you too, Supervisor Solis, served with Sheila Jackson Lee, as she's introduced legislation, H.R. 40, that would create a commission to examine reparation proposals for African Americans for the ongoing legacy of enslavement. This commission would focus on how we discern and deal with racial and economic disparities to advance racial equity in the United States. In the wake of the George Floyd murder, California established its own task force to study and develop reparation proposals for African Americans. Senator Steve Bradford, who authored the legislation that gave Los Angeles County the permission to return Bruce's Beach, is on that task force. And, you know, Sheila Jackson Lee, God love her, she has been advocating for this for as long as I can remember. She brings it up, I think, in every congressional session, but it's not gotten the attention or the support it deserves. And I hope for our country's sake that this year is different and that her legislation gets traction. And I think our board should put our full weight behind this effort. One of the things I think we need to do at the federal level is provide not only the investigation of these cases, but serious resources to help initiate justice and to provide for restitution and reparations. We in the County of Los Angeles, I'm sure you felt that, Supervisor Mitchell, we have an enormous amount of resources that helped us navigate returning Bruce's Beach. We have a team of lawyers. We could contract with genealogists to make sure we had the right legal heirs of Willa and Charles Bruce. We had everything that we needed to make that very difficult transaction possible. That's not true for a lot of other jurisdictions in our country, and maybe some want to do the right thing, but just don't have the resources it will take to unravel these complicated years of injustice that were inflicted on African Americans. So I think her legislation is important, and I think our 5-signature letter will urge our leaders in Washington, D.C. to pass this important legislation. I ask for my colleagues' aye on this motion.
Thank you very much. Supervisor Kuehl.
Very briefly, I, of course, support. I just wanted to say how important this is. And we would be making longer speeches if it were earlier in the day, because we do know how important this is. This is the wound of this country. And of course, African Americans have been so wounded by it. But I tend to think that it's larger than that in a way, and that this might be a way that we can all begin to heal. Just begin to heal. It's really important. So thank you, Supervisor Hahn.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Supervisor Hahn, thank you very much for bringing this item forward. And again, I think Bruce's Beach, I think the action we just took on item 19, that really in a tangible way empowers the community towards self-determination. So thank you very much for bringing this forward. I look forward to submitting this 5-signature letter with my name on it. That's a good thing. So hearing no other comments, item 27 is before us. Moved by Supervisor Hahn, seconded by Supervisor Kuehl to approve the item. Executive Officer, please call the roll.
Item 27 is before you. Supervisor Solis.
Aye.
Supervisor Solis, aye. Supervisor Kuehl.
Aye.
Supervisor Kuehl, aye. Supervisor Hahn.
Aye.
Supervisor Hahn, aye. Supervisor Barger.
Aye.
Supervisor Barger, aye. Supervisor Mitchell.
Aye.
Supervisor Mitchell, aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Colleagues, there are no specials today, so at this time it would be appropriate for us to transition to our adjournments. We'll begin with Supervisor Barger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that when we adjourn today, we do so in memory of John J. Kennedy. He was a longtime member of the Pasadena City Council and a lifelong resident of Pasadena, and he passed away on July 21st. John was born and raised in Pasadena, the 8th out of 10 siblings. John was a lifelong public servant, beginning as a student body president at Blair High School in Pasadena, and later as a student senator at USC. After completing his undergraduate studies at USC, John earned his law degree from Howard University. John later became the youngest president of the Pasadena chapter of the NAACP. He was appointed to serve as the Chief of Police Administrative Services Deputy in the Richmond, Virginia Police Department. He worked and served in various roles with numerous organizations, including the Southern California Edison, the Los Angeles Urban League, and the CHAP Care Board, where he spent 2 years as chair of the board of directors. John was elected to the Pasadena City Council in 2013, and during his tenure, he chaired the Public Safety Committee, served on the Finance Committee, and the Burbank-Glendale Pasadena Airport Authority. He was also an active member of the Pasadena Police Foundation, the Tom Bradley Legacy Foundation, and the University of Notre Dame School of Architecture Commission on Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. He was active with Pasadena Sister Cities delegations through which he visited China and Taiwan and led efforts to establish a sister city with the Dakar Plateau, Senegal. John was passionate about his community and helped champion many affordable housing development projects and earned a reputation, and I can attest to this, as a persistent and pragmatic policymaker. John had just recently won re-election for his third term. John was preceded in death by his parents, Thomas and Leola Kennedy, his brother Michael, and sisters Gladys and Glenda. He survived by his sisters Geraldine, Sharon, Rosalinda, Lena, who is a dear friend, and my heart goes out to her, Elizabeth, and brother Malcolm, along with a large extended family. May he rest in peace. Also, that we adjourn in memory.
Supervisor Barger?
Supervisor
Yes.
Barger, looks like Supervisor Solis and I add on, please.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to say something very quickly, if I could, Supervisor Barger. I had the chance to meet John Kennedy at his home. I think it was 2 years ago, and a wonderful man and his family, very loving, very well respected. And it was on the occasion where we were celebrating an event for then President-elect Joe Biden. So he just made a wonderful impression on me, and I want to send my prayers to his family and my condolences. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Also, I move that when we adjourn today, we do so in memory of Aiden Agner, 2022 Quartz Hill High School graduate who went to work for the Kern County Fire Department 4 days after graduation, and he tragically passed away June 11th at the young age of 18. Aiden was critically injured June 28th in a crash while driving to work at the Keene Helibase, where he was employed as a seasonal firefighter. Born October 24th, 2003 in Lancaster, Aiden graduated from Quartz Hill High School on June 2nd of 2022. He immediately went to work for the Kern County Fire Department. At Quartz Hill High, he was a valedictorian and captain of the football team, where he was running back and linebacker. He was named Defensive Player of the Week for the Southern California in December of 2021 and Cal High Sports for his performance in a bowl game against Blythe. Aiden was honored as a first-team All-Golden League linebacker, first-team All-CIF Southern Section linebacker, and Team Defense Player of the Year, and he was in the top 10 in California of 152 tackles. He's survived by his parents, Melissa and Casey Payne, and Mike and Lisa Agnor, siblings Harmony Payne and Caleb Agnor, grandparents Mike and Connie Rano, and Jan Agnor. May he also rest in peace. And that we adjourn in memory of Jerry Gladback, a resident of the Santa Clarita Valley who passed away on July 14, 2022. He moved to the Santa Clarita Valley in 1968. Soon after, he attended college and obtained a bachelor's and master's degree in science from the University of Missouri-Columbia. Jerry was a registered professional engineer in California and a fellow life member of the American Society of Civil Engineers. In January 1985, he was elected to the board of the Castaic Lake Water Agency, and which later merged with the Newhall County Water District to form the Santa Clarita Valley Water. He also served and was very active with state and national water organizations. During his involvement, Gladback was a member of the board of directors in the National Water Resources Association and president of the board of directors of the Association of California Water Agencies and a Joint Powers Insurance Authority. Jerry also chaired the Local Agency Formation Commission for Los Angeles County and was presented with the commission's Most Outstanding Commissioner Award in 2013. During Jerry's tenure on LAFCO, the commission considered the proposed succession of Hollywood, San Pedro, and the San Fernando Valley from the city of Los Angeles, the proposed incorporation of the city of East of Los Angeles during which time he presided over more than 8 hours of passionate testimony from cityhood supporters and opponents. The successful commission initiated dissolution of the former Huntington Municipal Water District, the successful dissolution of the former Sativa County Water Agency, several dozen adoptions of municipal service reviews for cities and special districts, as well as hundreds of proposed annexations to cities and special districts, sphere of influence amendments, and out-of-agency service requests. In 2021, the California Association of Local Agency Formation, CalLAFCO, awarded Jerry the Lifetime Achievement Award. This is CalLAFCO's highest award, and it's bestowed on less than a dozen people in CalLAFCO's 50-year history. In addition to his 35 years of employment at the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, he was also the ACWA Vice President, Chair of its Region 8 Board, and was a member of the Business Development Corporation. Jerry is survived by his beloved wife, Donna, 3 children, Eric, Jana, and Beth, and 6 grandchildren, and a sister, Judy.
Supervisor, he was so wonderfully welcoming to me as a brand new LAFCO member. Would you please mind adding me on?
Yeah, me too, because I served with him when I was on LAFCO.
Let's add the full board if you don't mind.
Yeah, great.
That would be absolutely fine. I know Donna would appreciate that.
Thank you.
And also that we adjourn in memory of Betty Smith, a longtime Antelope Valley resident. She was born in Jamesport, Missouri. Betty came to California after high school. Betty's career in the Antelope Valley included selling real estate, managing the Lancaster Chamber of Commerce, owning and managing the Tipsy Bull Bar and Restaurant, and handling sales and public relations for the Antelope Valley Rubbish and Waste Management. Betty was involved for decades with the Antelope Valley Fair, the Lancaster Quartz Hill and Palmdale Chambers of Commerce, and other organizations throughout the region. She served on numerous committees, including the Desert Haven Auction, Lancaster Incorporation, Lancaster City, Sister City, Domestic Violence Shelter, and the Antelope Valley Boys and Girls Club. She was honored as California Woman of the Year in 1994. Betty began volunteer work at the Antelope Valley Fair in 1963 and continued until her death. She served as fair director and she was Grand Marshal of the Fair Parade. For her service, she was honored with both the Blue Ribbon and Golden Ribbon Awards. Betty was founding member of the Presidents of the Friends of the Antelope Valley Fair Board. She was best known for her work as the announcer for the Junior Livestock Auction, a role that she filled every year since 1976. Betty liked to golf and was an active member of the Antelope Valley Country Club. She enjoyed traveling with the women's team for many years and served on the scholarship committee. She's survived by her daughters, Kathy and Cindy. And that we adjourn in memory of Frank Stewart, a longtime resident of Los Angeles, who passed away July 15th. He was born in England, Arkansas. He was the 4th of 6 children born to AZ and Margaret. Frank met his wife, Emma Washington, in Arkansas before moving to California. In 1964, he became a certified automatic transmission specialist. He was an entrepreneur owning Surratt's transmission with his brother, Samuel, and separately owned a trucking and Surratt's Fish Company, among several other business ventures over the year. Frank's spiritual life began in 1972 in Little Zion Missionary Baptist Church. He became an ordained deacon in 1963 and served on the board for 35 years as co-chairman. He also taught the men's Sunday school class. Deacon Frank Surratt loved the Lord, his family, and his church. He was a man beyond measure with unwavering dedication to Christ. In 2008, Frank was led to Greater Emmanuel Missionary Baptist Church under the leadership of Pastor Harold L. Mitchell. Shortly after serving, Pastor Mitchell asked him to serve as co-chairman of the deacon board, along with the chairman, Henry Robinson. He was a Sunday school superintendent, teacher, leader of laborers for Christ, and worked with the food ministry, among other roles within the parish community. He's survived by his wife of 62 years, Emma Baby Doll Surratt, 3 daughters, Kathleen Hunter, Linda, who's married Samuel Davis, and Buffy, who's married to Aaron Dubois. Last, I move that the Board of Supervisors adjourn in memory of the following individuals who were identified as indigent veterans by the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner and were subsequently buried with dignity and honor at Riverside National Cemetery in the last month. Raymond Anthony Arellano, Navy; Terry Baker, Army; Benjamin Barraza, Marines; Carrie Dean Bamscom, Army; James Donald Cadenhead, Army; Gregory Lee Collins, Air Force; Robert Joseph Collins, Marine Corps; Edward Graves, Air Force; Robert Francis Johnson, Army; Stephen John Massano, Navy; William Pando Jr., Marine Corps; James Edward Potts, Army; Earl Jack Sherman, Army; James Earl Sloman, Marine Corps; James Frank Stukes, Air Force; James Paul Sawaski, Marine Corps. May their contribution and sacrifice in service to our country never be forgotten. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, is that me? I just lost my screen, so if someone could help me get my screen back up. Right, it's going to me. If someone can help me get my screen back up, I just touched something.
I
I
can
move
see.
that when we adjourn in memory, I move that when we adjourn today, we adjourn in memory of a member of the county family, Mr. Richard Nelson. Mr. Nelson was born April 27th, 1947 in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and unfortunately passed away July 13th here in LA at the age of 75. Mr. Nelson had an early interest in broadcasting. During his teens, he started an AM broadcast radio station from his parents' basement. Mr. Nelson attended Brown Institute of Technology, and in 1979, he relocated to Los Angeles. He began working with the LA County Chief Executive Office in 1988. At the time of his passing, he was the chief broadcast engineer responsible for ensuring that the public had viewing access to our Board of Supervisors meetings either online or on television. While in his position as chief broadcast engineer, Mr. Nelson helped with over 14,000 board meeting broadcasts. His work and dedication greatly improved the efficiency, transparency, and public participation in the board meetings by deploying services such as closed captioning, internet streaming, language translation, meeting transcripts, and the voting system that was previously used by the board during board meetings. Mr. Nelson will be remembered for his strong work ethic, mentorship, and kindness. He developed a strong relationship with his colleagues and will be greatly missed. He is survived by his sister, Mary Ann, brother-in-law, Mike, 2 nephews, Benjamin and Nathaniel, 2 nieces, Elizabeth and Rebecca, and 3 grandnephews, Henry, Lucas, and William. Again, his entire county family sends our thoughts and prayers to his family. And I would invite all members to join me in this adjourn in memory. Thank you very much, everyone, for signing on in support. And we've got acknowledgments here in the hearing room for all those who worked collaboratively with Mr. Nelson for many years. So we do this in his honor on behalf of all of you. Thank you. Moving on to Supervisor Kuehl.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I have one adjournment today. So I ask that when we adjourn today, we adjourn in memory of John Freunds, who died on July 13th. He was trained as a chemist, and he stood trial alongside 6 other anti-war activists known collectively as the Chicago 7. His involvement came at the request of another 3rd District resident, Tom Hayden, who was planning anti-war protests at the 1968 Democratic National Convention in Chicago. Hayden reached out to Freunds because of his experience in anti-violent organizing. Freunds' involvement led to his prosecution as a member of the Chicago 7, a group of activists charged by the government for allegedly fomenting riots and promoting violence during the convention. John was acquitted. The trial was the basis for the Netflix film, The Trial of the Chicago Seven. So a lot more in the new generations knew who he was and what he had done. I don't think, though, they know what happened after that trial. Dr. Freund's returned to academia, worked for several years in Washington for the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. And under his direction, the agency wrote the first regulatory guidelines for non-carcinogenic toxins like lead and cotton dust, which set the stage for dramatic increases in workplace and public health. He did much the same at UCLA after moving to LA in 1981. A pioneering advocate for environmental justice, he directed numerous university research centers and sat on the state's scientific review panel for air quality. He engaged with communities hit hard by industrial pollution and smog, tailoring his research to their needs, and even accompanying neighborhood groups to meet with government and corporate officials. A really fine man, a brave man, and a good man. He's survived by his wife, Andrea, his daughter, Rebecca, and his son, Jonathan. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Supervisor Hahn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that when we adjourn today, we adjourn in the memory of Lorraine Arian, who was a longtime resident of San Pedro, who passed away at the age of 77. Lorraine was born into a family tradition of making a positive impact, actively protesting wrongs and working diligently to make the world a better place. She threw herself into the civil rights movement of the 1960s by actively opposing housing discrimination. It was through her activism that her younger brother, Dave Arian, joined the civil rights movement. Together, they would go on to support many community organizations and events such as the Harry Bridges Institute, Labor Day parades, Bloody Thursday picnics, and Juneteenth celebrations. She was also an early female recruit into the ILWU Marine Clerks Local 63, joining her father and brother, Dave, in solidifying the family identity as ILWU Strong. After retirement, she stayed active with the ILWU pensioners. I was so happy many times after she retired to run into Lorraine at different events or sometimes in the parking lot of the grocery store. And she always was so encouraging to me in all that I was doing. We will miss Lorraine so much, but she left an incredible legacy. And she's survived by her daughter, Lindsay, her nephew, Sean, and her niece, Justine. I also move that when we adjourn today, we adjourn in the memory of Lynn Cutter Gronke, who was a longtime resident of Torrance, and she was 69 when she passed away after a long battle with cancer. Lynn was a pharmaceutical technician at Vaughn's Pharmacy on 25th Street in San Pedro for 26 years, which is the one I go to. She was much loved by all of her customers and colleagues. Lynn is survived by her loving husband, Philip, and many extended family members. I also move that when we adjourn today, we adjourn in the memory of Manny Avila, who was a council member for the city of Huntington Park. Supervisor Solis, you might want to join me on this as well, since you represented them until redistricting. He served on the city council until he was a member of the Parks and Recreation Committee for the City of Huntington Park, where he served until 2001 and then was reappointed in 2005. He was first elected to the City Council in 2017 and won re-election just this June. He was born in Mexico City, was a resident of Huntington Park since 1968. He attended college and became an elementary school teacher in Mexico. And after immigrating to the United States, Manny worked in factories in Vernon and joined the Steel Workers of America Local 7100, where he was a member for more than 25 years and served as financial secretary for more than 13 years. Manny also served as past president of the Huntington Park Lions Club, the Huntington Park Friends of the Library, and served as parish council treasurer at St. Matthias Church. He is preceded in death by wife Rebecca and is survived by his 3 children.
Yes, I'd like to join you, Supervisor Hahn.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm sure they would want that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor
Thank you.
Solis. I also move that when we adjourn today, we adjourn in the memory of Robert Gaffey, who was a longtime resident of San Pedro and was 82 when he passed away. Robert was drafted in the U.S. Army in 1964. He was stationed at Fort MacArthur in San Pedro, where he was a member of the Honor Guard before serving a tour in Vietnam. After leaving the Army, he worked in the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach for 40 years. He was an active member of Holy Trinity Catholic Church. He also served on the board of Eastview Little League. Robert is survived by his wife of 52 years, Idilma, his 3 children, Richard, Christine, and Caroline, and his 7 grandchildren. And I also, my last one, is that I move that when we adjourn today, we adjourn in the memory of William Reckner, who's also a longtime resident of San Pedro, who passed away at the age of 82. He was a business and community service leader in the South Bay for over 30 years. Bill worked in advertising for the Los Angeles Times and the South Bay Center. He received many awards for his ad campaigns, including being chosen as one of the International Newspaper Advertising Association's 5 best advertising ideas in the United States. Bill took pride in building relationships and cultivated an extensive network of close contacts, both personally and professionally. A few of his many community service credentials include being president of the AMI South Bay Hospital Board and Redondo Beach Chamber of Commerce. Bill also served as the director of the South Bay YMCA, and in 1979, he was named Redondo Beach Man of the Year. Bill is survived by his daughter Hillary, his son Scott, stepdaughters Nicolette and Penelope, and 2 granddaughters. Thank you, Madam Chair. Those are my adjournments.
And thank you very much. We'll take all the motions as seconded, and if there's no objection to a unanimous vote, such will be the order. Executive Officer, will you please read us into closed session?
Thank you, Madam Chair. In accordance with Brown Act requirements, notice is hereby given that the Board of Supervisors will convene in closed session to discuss item CS1, conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation, CS2, department head performance evaluations, CS3, conference labor negotiator, Fezia Davenport and designated staff, CS4, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation, and item CS5 in open session. This item was referred back to County Council. Thank you.
The board is currently in closed session and will return to open session once closed session has ended. The board is currently in closed session and will return to open session once closed session has ended.
I'll now call roll to confirm attendance. Supervisor Solis. Supervisor Kuehl. Again, repeating, I'll call roll now to confirm attendance. Supervisor Solis. Supervisor Kuehl. We're calling roll. Supervisor Solis. Supervisor Kuehl. Supervisor Kuehl. They can't hear me. Well, there it says it has to unmute. It's taken 5 of us to figure out how to unmute the laptop. So again, I'm calling roll to confirm attendance. Supervisor Solis. Supervisor Kuehl. Here. Supervisor Hahn. Here. Supervisor Barger. Here. Executive Officer, please read the report of action.
The following is a report of action taken in closed session on July 26, 2022. Items CS1, CS2, and CS3, no reportable action was taken. On item CS4, the board authorized the settlement of the matter entitled Marcus Mataros County versus County of Los Angeles in the amount of $19,750,000. The vote of the board was unanimous with all supervisors present. Item CS5, in open session, this item was referred back to County Council. Thank you.
That concludes today's meeting. The next regular meeting of the board will be held on Tuesday, August 2nd, 2022. Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening. Bye. Well done, Madam Chair. Bye-bye, everybody.
Oh, I see now why. Okay.
Sorry for the difficulty.
That's okay.